Hey, I just wanted to give you some advice for answering a question in an exam where you're asked to evaluate something. Today we're going to focus on an evaluation question for a Year 8 history exam on the topic of Shogunate Japan. So it's important to understand what the word evaluate means because that's going to shape your response. The word evaluate means or has to do with making a judgment on something. So when you make a judgment on something, you have a side of an argument and you support it with facts and information. So let's look at this question here. Evaluate how influential the feudal system was on Japanese society during the shogunate period. It'd be important to highlight the descriptor, which is evaluate, because it's asking us to do that. And then also the key point in this, which is the feudal system. So there's a source below. You can imagine this one here is a pyramid where the emperor is at the top of the pyramid and the social outcasts are at the bottom of the pyramid. The highest rank is at the top and then the lowest rank is at the bottom. So this is what the feudal system is all about, those different levels of social classes. So how do I respond to that question? In an exam, I would only spend about 15 minutes on this, so we've got to use our time wisely. What I like to do is come up with some main points that I would like to talk about in my response. So, in the response, the reader needs to be able to know what question you're addressing and what it's about. So, in my discussion, I'd want the reader to know what the feudal system is. I'd also want them to know what the different levels in the feudal system were and what influence it had on Japan at that time. So there's no point me just writing random facts and pieces of information and stating my opinion. I have to have a particular structure. Let's have a look at the structure I like to use for an evaluation question. The first sentence should restate the question and express your opinion or judgment on it. Okay, what do I mean by that? The first sentence should clearly reflect what the question's about, and it should tell the reader what side of the argument you're pleading here or you want to talk about. The body talks about the main points of why you believe this stance or judgment on this topic, and then the final sentence links back to the question and summarizes what you've talked about. Okay, so let's have a look at an example that I've written, and let's focus on these main points, the structure of the response, and maybe we can give you some more tips for how to write your own response as we go through it. Okay, let's have a look at the first sentence. So, the feudal system was highly influential on Japanese society during the shogunate period. What I've done in my first sentence there is highlight my stance or what side of the judgment I believe. I believed it was highly influential, so make note of that word. I use the word highly because that tells the reader what I believe about my stance on this topic. The feudal system was a form of government or way in which society was organized, which meant that people were grouped into different social ranks, as seen in source 1. So, there's another point that I haven't mentioned previously. In your response, you must refer to the sources to support your argument or to support the facts that you're giving. So, in there, I've linked what I've talked about to the source. So, some things that I usually see is that people just when it gets maybe to the end of their paragraph or something, just say something in relation to the source that isn't particularly relevant or isn't particularly tied in to the discussion or argument. This is a really effective way of what I've done here. We're tying it in to the discussion that I've already got. So it's important to link that one in. So each rank had a particular task, had particular tasks and jobs to perform. The higher class people would provide land to the lower class in returns for goods, service, such as in the military, or labour and taxes. So, I have addressed what is the feudal system and what were the different levels. I hope you noticed that I didn't go into explaining each of the different levels and what their roles were, because that would take away from my discussion, I feel. It would get into too much detail. Let me move on to the next paragraph. In the shogunate period of Japan, the highest group in the social order was the emperor. Following this, in decreasing social power were the shogun, daimyo, peasants, merchants, artisans, and outcast groups. People were born into these groups and could not change between them freely. For these reasons, the feudal system created unity and stability in Japan as people knew their role in society and took pride in their country. So I've then answered the last question, or the last point that I wanted to make. What influence did it have? Okay. Now I'm up to creating a linking sentence back to my question and summarize the main points that I've made. So, the feudal system undoubtedly played an important role in influencing Japanese society by defining social classes, creating unity and stability among the people. So these are the main points that I talked about. Defining social classes, creating unity and stability among the people. And I've used an important word, or a powerful word here, undoubtedly, to restate my position on this topic. Okay, I hope this video was helpful in helping you understand how to write a response in an exam where you're asked to evaluate something.